that I could have been left to a life that would have been sort of purely narcissistic or self-destructive or anything. I used to live
I don't see how that, in some sense, I don't see how that can be, there can be any alternative to that if there isn't another pathway forward.
Yes,
right? So,
and so that's to me, that's like the unknown road that I'm going down right now, that I'm choosing to go down that unknown road of, it can be better than that, right? As I said, we have 2 or 3 couples that are gay parents that are doing some version of this, but we don't have that model. But then when, we lived in West Hollywood is the gayest place on earth, rainbow crosswalks and the whole thing. And to me, I would see these guys that were, 65, 70 years old, that all they had basically was that they worked out, they spray tanned and got hair plugs, they had their little dogs, and they partied on the weekends and probably chased the same sexual escapades that they were chasing 40 years ago.
Right,
and
so
it's not a life.
Adolescence.
Yeah, and it's not a full life. And I actually, it's like, I have like almost like a visceral feeling when I talk about it, because I know that could have been me. So when I see these people that either at this point are against gay marriage, but in general, there don't seem to be that many voices publicly about that anymore.
So here's a rough question. So do you think both the flamboyance, now I want to get into this in some detail, but the flamboyance that's been historically associated with the male homosexual community, sorry about that, and the promiscuity, to what degree do you think that both of those are a consequence of not having a more integrated and conservative path potentially open in front of people?
I think it's a huge amount that probably will never be fully explained. If people don't have an ability, look, what was the gay rights movement for in the 70s in New York City and Stonewall and all of those things? It was, these people just wanted to be able to get married. That was part of it. But it was also that they wanted to be able to go to a bar that wasn't underground, that wasn't hidden, that wasn't, this seedy thing. But that's what they had to do because they were getting raided by the police. And this was going on, obviously, in other countries, and it was going on for decades before that. But they wanted some sense of normalcy. If you don't leave people some little seeds of normalcy, then they will do all sorts of things. So the flamboyant part, there's 2 parts you're asking about. So the flamboyant part, I'm just not built that way. I'm not. Sometimes I used to, when I was first sort of coming out or coming to grips with myself, I actually liked guys that were kind of flamboyant because to me, it was like, they're so who they are. Like they had just let go of every sort of normal cliche or something like that. They're so who they are.
You saw in that kind of existential courage.
Yeah, and yet they always really like, generally gays, they like straight acting. That's a real thing with gays. They like straight acting. So guys always liked me because I didn't seem gay, whatever that meant. And I thought it sort of meant that I was broken in a weird way because it made me feel like a sort of like double freak in an odd sense.
Right.
Because I was struggling.
Too queer for the straight community and too straight for the queer community.
Well said, man. And so I was sort of grappling with that. So there's the flamboyant part, and then you're asking about the sex side of it. It's like if you don't leave people with some ability to say, you can be in a lasting relationship. This is why marriage equality was so important. Now, this is a sidebar, but I would never force a church or a mosque or a synagogue to perform a wedding that it was against its beliefs. But from a secular perspective, to whatever respect we remain secular in this country, if you don't give people the same opportunity to be in a relationship,